Ladies and gentlemen, you are now watching and listening to Real Talk with Ronnie, with your host, Ronald Lynn. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Real Talk with Ronnie. On my show tonight, I have a very good personal friend and an extraordinary guy who's running for state assembly here in New Jersey in District 39. His name is Dr. John Azzariti. John Azzariti is currently the councilman in Saddle River. Aside from being a councilman, he's also an anesthesiologist, a very busy guy, one of the best. And on top of that, he's also a semi-professional chef. And we'll have a chance to catch up with him and ask him about his life and everything that he's doing when we bring him on right now. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good, Ronnie. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me on.
Sure. So Dr. John Azzariti, this is your first time on Real Talk with Ronnie. We're thrilled to have you on. Throughout the course of my show during the past, couple of years, I always refer to you, right? Because you've always been a huge fan of my show. And now to have you on my show, it's really a, huge honor. So thank you.
It's an honor for me as well. And we talked about it for quite some time. We finally got to work it out. So thank you.
Right. So Dr. Azzariti, for my viewers that are watching right now, who might be seeing you for the first time, why don't you give them a rundown on who exactly is Dr. John Azzariti?
Well, I've been a Bergen County, New Jersey resident my entire life. I'm an anesthesiologist. I work in Ridgewood, New Jersey at Valley Hospital. I've been there for my only job after residency since 1996. I currently serve on the Saddle River Borough Council, and obviously I'm running for state assembly now. And that's the summary. That's in a nutshell. That's who I am.
Okay, wow. So let me just ask you, just off the bat, right? What's harder, being a renowned doctor or running for office?
That's a good question. They're both. I can't say one is harder than the other. They both take a lot of effort and energy, and rely on my experiences for both of those. I mean, they're different, and in exactly what we're doing every day on each side of that. However, you need to be committed to both, and you need to have some core beliefs and feelings and understanding about what you're doing. So that's how they're the same. So I can't say one is hard. They're both challenging, and they're both very gratifying.
Yeah, but I would imagine that being in politics and running for office is a little bit more grimier than being in the OR, right?
Well, grimier, is that
right? Yeah.
It's different in terms of the relationships and gosh, it's hard to explain the way people talk about you and perceive you and couch you. Whereas in the operating room, it gets grimy. Believe me, it gets very dirty in the operating room physically. But
right.
People know who I am, and I know who our surgeons are, and we all get along very well. And it's very different in terms of interpersonal relations and how people perceive you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, you went to med school and became a doctor because you wanted to obviously help people, right? Is it in that same vein that has led you to run for public office?
Absolutely. And I've actually always wanted to do that since I was probably in 8th grade. So it's, as I said, it's very gratifying what I do. I take care of, I work in the operating room. Some anesthesiologists do pain management and critical care. I do operating room anesthesia. It's very gratifying. I take care of one patient at a time. And sometimes I'm in the hospital in the middle of the night, walking in the halls of 4 o'clock in the morning. And nobody really wants to be there 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm proud of what I did. So it's not a problem being there at that time. So, yeah. So being in politics, I see that as an opportunity to be able to make my mark in a positive way on more people. And it's rather than one person at a time, I can make my mark in a very positive way if I do the right thing, which is why I'm here in that way.
Okay. Now, what is your platform for the state assembly? Like, what are the top 3 things that you want to accomplish and get done when you get to office?
Well, gosh, there's so much wrong in New Jersey now. We could spend a lot of time talking about the various things that need to be changed in New Jersey. I think families in New Jersey, they need to be secure. All right, now we're losing that security financially. New Jersey's become unaffordable, and every year becomes more unaffordable. Property taxes are very high, the highest in the nation. Personal income taxes, business taxes, regulations, red tape. These are all driving businesses out of the state and making families less secure. As crime is increasing everywhere. I get emails and texts from the towns around here. I see it on social media. Cars being stolen out of people's garages, people breaking into homes. We're a sanctuary state. We have some criminals walking around, and we don't really know who they are, when they're going to show up. So we need to support our law enforcement, and we need to protect our families. So the third part of security is securing our children's future, and that is related largely to education. There was a tremendous learning loss based on these horrendous, non-scientific based policies coming out of Trenton, and we need to find a way to fix that for those people, those children who experience that. And at the same time, where state mandates are coming down about the curriculum, where these some of these depraved mandates are being put on children, which is outrageous. So I think I put one word: security, but economic, crime, and our children. I think that's all related to family security.
Okay. Now, being a physician, right? What are your thoughts on the health mandates that were passed down during the past couple of years in Jersey? Do you think they were necessary, or do you think it was a bit of an overreach by the government?
It was a tremendous overreach, and the legislature itself gave up its duty. The Democrats in the legislature basically let the governor dictate policies as if you were a king. So, number one, closing businesses, closing schools, masking, mandatory masking, all these things. And it seemed to be, there were no rhyme or reason to it. It was claimed that we're following the science, but I know a little about science, and that didn't look like science to me at all. Even to this day, most of it was not based on science. It was based on political science. And I think based on what other governors were doing in surrounding states.
Right. Now, you mentioned the high cost of living, crime, right? Inflation, all those issues are affecting our state, right? Are those the same sort of issues that you see affecting our country, or do you think there are more?
Well, I think they're similar. I think they're worse in a place like New Jersey because of the leadership that we have, or the non-leadership. We have Democrats have controlled our legislature for 20 years, and we have a Democrat governor, and basically unchecked policies that have led to all those problems that I talked about. I think they're directly related in many respects, the problems to those policies coming out of Trenton. So the country certainly has a lot of, the various states have a lot of similar problems, but much worse in these states run by these radical extremists.
Okay. Now, your road to the assembly hasn't always been smooth, right?
That's right.
You initially ran for the assembly, I believe, in 21, right? And it was a very close race, right? It was a convention to take the seat of
special election, yeah.
Right. It was to take the seat of now Senator Holly Schepisi, right?
That's right. There was a special election when Senator Cardinale passed away. Assemblywoman Schepisi then became Senator Schepisi, as you said, and then I contended for that seat. I lost by 7 votes. And, I actually wasn't even planning on running this time because we had our team. They announced that they were running, but at the last minute, Assemblywoman DeFuccio decided not to run. And that's how I got back in it.
Right. So you got back in, and it was actually a pleasant surprise, right? Because like you said, you were not expecting to be running for maybe a couple more years, right? When a seat opens up. So when it did open up this year, right, you also had to go through a sort of like a primary, right?
Yeah, there was a in order to
convention, right?
A mini convention basically in the district,
right?
There were I think initially there were 5 others who wanted the Bergen County endorsement, Bergen County Republican line,
right?
And and I was one of them. Several of them, three of them dropped out, and then until the end, one remained. And we took that to a convention, and I won the convention. So I'm moving forward, and really, I couldn't be happier that it worked out that way.
Right. Now, has something happened during that convention, and let's say for some fluke reason you somehow lost, would this have been something that you would have pursued in the future again, or would you have been, screw politics?
No, I actually love politics. I certainly would not have run off the line against the nominee. I was ready to support whoever won that convention, because we being a Republican and the Republican values, that's our main focus. No, but I would have stayed active in politics, supporting candidates, advocating for the right policies, and that's what I've been doing long before I even ran for state office.
Right. So we're in 23 right now, right? Every seat in the state legislature is up this year, right? You're probably going to win your seat, I'm going to guess, right? Because you're in District 39, and plus,
I hope so.
Plus, you're part of a great slate. You're a great candidate. But in terms of the entire state outlook, right? Do you see the Republican Party picking up seats and gaining the majority in both chambers, or what do you think?
Well, at minimum, we're going to pick up seats. That's for sure. And I think there's a chance that we could pick up the majority in either or both houses. Mm-hmm. But if not this time, then certainly in 2025, and when we elect a Republican governor. The last election we was very close for governor, but we picked up a lot of seats, and we have momentum. We're learning how to get low propensity voters out to vote, which is what Democrats have done for years.
Right.
And so that's why I'm very optimistic that we are on a good path. We have the momentum now, and not only momentum, just politically, we're right on the ideas. Media would have us believe that some of these crazy policies are normal and we need to celebrate them. But when you talk to people, friends, family, people in the community, privately, nobody believes in these things, except a lot of people are just scared to say it in public. So I'm not scared to say it in public, and I know you're not, but nobody believes in these things. Right. And that's why I'm optimistic about this moving forward with Republicans in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are some of these policies that no one really agrees with?
Well, let's talk about the whole transgender children issue. Nobody, I think most people don't really care if your neighbor's transgender, as an adult. But I think we're teaching it in schools, we're indoctrinating that this is a normal thing. It taints the children's minds, like, and they're coming out of that indoctrinated that this is a normal thing. And on top of that, they want to transition children without even telling their parents. It's outrageous. It's beyond outrageous. So that's just crazy policies like that. Nobody agrees with that except the radicals, the extremists on the other side, and the media and their media backers who try to tell us that this is all normal. And then to go with that, I think physically transitioning through gender affirming surgery, which is what they call it, or hormone therapy, in a child who can't make that decision for him or herself is really I believe it's abusive. That child, listen, when anyone attains adulthood can make that decision for him or herself, but I think we need to give children the best chance by letting them be children.
Right. Now, given the fact that these are policies that basically, the majority of Americans don't agree with, why do you think these policies have become such a big headway in American society today?
I think it has a lot to do with media. Media is very much skewed toward the extreme left, and you see major corporations just bowing to this, and only recently we're seeing some repercussions from that against those companies, because I think people have just had enough. I think, for example, this transgender. Nobody. I take care of transgender patients. I treat them with compassion, and I'm just as my skill set as with anyone else. but I don't support imparting that on children. So, but when it comes to children,
Right.
it's very different.
Yeah, I just feel like, whether a child is inherently transgender or not, I think it's up to the child, right? I think if they are, then that day will come when they do come out and say that, right? But to have the school just consistently and constantly pound that thought into a child's head, especially at such a tender age, it's a bit of an overreach.
It sure is, and statistics show that even 10 years ago, I don't have the numbers at the right here with me, but even 10 years ago, the number of children who claim to be transgender is exponentially less than it is today. And
right.
And now somebody would say, well, they weren't exposed to it, they weren't allowed to, they didn't feel like they could come out with that. But I think it's gone to an extreme that it can't possibly be that number.
Right. Okay. Now, speaking of 25, because we spoke about the governor's race, right? Do you have a favorite horse in that race for 25? I mean, there hasn't really been a declared candidate yet, but we kind of all know who's going to be running, right? It's either going to be Jack Ciattarelli, Bill Spadea, or a few other, candidates that haven't really announced yet. But do you have a particular favorite candidate?
Well, listen, I'm gonna wait to see who's running, and maybe Ronald Lynn will rerun. I'll have to reevaluate. But I will tell you that Jack Ciattarelli, he did a great job. He's up and down the state talking the good talk. He's trying to get Republicans elected. So I have great respect for Jack, and he came out for me the other night to an event. So he's done a great job, and he's certainly. I would think now is the front runner. So I really have great respect for Jack Ciattarelli.
Okay. Well, regardless as who gets the nomination, right? There's always a spot on the ticket for perhaps a Lieutenant Governor Azzariti.
I really, I'm going to be. This is a good point that I was going to say earlier. I'm still going to be working in my profession. I really enjoy what I do.
Right.
And thanks to my
and also it kind of pays a little bit more too, right?
A little more, yeah. That's right. So I want to stay in there. I'm not old enough to retire yet in my own mind. I really love what I do. I love interacting with the patients. So I really want to serve in the legislature. That's what I'm focused on now. Actually, and if for some reason someone asked me, they wouldn't. But I wouldn't even take it. I wouldn't even take it at this point. I really want to serve in the legislature.
Okay. Are your fingers crossed?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right.
That is the truth.
So 25, we spoke about. Now let's talk about 24, which is next year, which is the more pressing year, right? Everyone's talking about 24. Ron DeSantis just announced his bid for president, right? And I know that you've, met President Trump on, many occasions. Do you have a particular favorite in that race?
I'm not gonna choose someone right now. Listen, we have a long way to go in that race. Donald Trump, he did a great job as president. He unfortunately had some problems that temperament problems or perception problems. But what he actually did and accomplished was really amazing. So I supported him. But I'm not really gonna say right now. Listen, Ron DeSantis has a lot of good things going on. He did a good job in Florida during COVID. I think he was the example for the nation about not overreaching. So, but there are others as well, and there are others who will be coming into the race. So it should be interesting. And as you know, in politics, this is a very long way away.
Oh yes, in politics. I mean, we're talking about next year, right? Anything can happen next month or next week, right? So,
yeah, especially nowadays, right?
Yep. All right, now on to my fun question, which I guess is the most important question that everyone wants to know, right? What does John Azzariti do for fun? I mean, we already know the answer. John Azzariti is a semi-professional chef, right? Would you like to talk to us about your cooking skills? What led you to become such a extraordinaire when it comes to the kitchen?
Thank you for saying that. I'm semi-professional. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, I think I've learned a lot over the years. I love cooking. My mother used to cook. I used to cook with her. And then my mother was a nurse, and she would sometimes work in the afternoon, and I would cook for everyone. So when she got home, it was ready. So I really enjoyed it. I worked in a deli when I was younger, one of my dreams is to own a deli, one of my many professions. So I'd say over the last 10 years or so, I really kicked it up with, charcoal grilling. I love charcoal grilling. I love using cast iron, the basics. I like fire. I like it real, which is why I don't want anyone to get rid of my gas stove either, in my natural gas stove top. That's going to be tough for me if they ever do that. So certainly not under my watch in the legislature. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So I love it. And the other thing about cooking is that, I sometimes I take out a huge piece of meat, like on a Saturday night, and Saturday I defrost it, put it on Saturday night, and it slow cooks overnight. And then I tell my wife in the morning, we need to invite some people over. So I love cooking for people. I love when they enjoy it. And it's just, and the whole process just relaxes me. I really enjoy it.
Okay. Now, what is your all-time favorite dish to cook?
Oh, wow. I would say that while it's not complicated, it's complicated to cook a good steak and cook it well. I think I've gotten very good at it. Listen, I like cooking a lot of different things, but I would say probably the things that I've made the most in my life, I've made steak probably more than anything, and all different types of cuts. And I use, cast iron. Sometimes I'll do a cast iron over charcoal. Sometimes I'll do it in the oven, on the pan in the oven. Sometimes I'll do it right over the charcoals. So I'm always changing it up, but I love making steak.
Right. One of the worst things that can happen to me is when I stumble upon one of your posts, your food posts at 2 a.m. Because you're always posting like these delicious photos of like steak, like everything else, and it's like 2 a.m. and I'm looking at it, and my stomach is like growling. I'm like, oh man, Dr. Azzariti, what are you doing to me?
One of my friends tells me when he opens his iPad, when he has to lick his iPad. So.
Okay, now, Doctor, I see that you have some bleacher seats in back of you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What's the genesis?
Yeah, so I'm a very big baseball fan, and I'm a New York Mets fan. I have been my whole life. And when it's a good story actually here, because when Shea Stadium was being torn down to build Citi Field, I knew that they were selling some seats from Shea Stadium. And so I immediately, when the moment came, I ordered, and you had to buy 2 at a time. So I bought 2, and I called my wife and I said, I did something crazy. I just ordered 2 seats. And she's like, oh, that's nice. And what I didn't know is that she had also ordered 2. So we now have 4 seats from Shea Stadium. And the other thing about those seats is that, when I was a kid, we had no money, and we went there a few times. We would sit very high in the red seats. It was great for us, right? These seats are field level seats that I could never afford when I was a kid. So makes it a little, more special that way.
Now, your wife had ordered it as a surprise, right?
Yes.
Wow. So great minds think alike, right? Okay. Now, Dr. Azzariti, I'll give you the next minute to give your best spiel to the people of New Jersey and District 39 as to why they ought to vote for you this November.
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on the show. You've been asking me, and my schedule is very tight, so I really appreciate it. People ask me why I'm doing this all the time, and there are a lot of reasons, but I always point out the American dream. I think I've lived I know I've lived the American dream. I continue to live it, coming from a house with 4 kids and 2 parents, no money, and my parents always struggled paying the bills, and we were all aware of that. But what I did have was hope, and I always knew that I could do whatever I wanted to do if I just put my mind to it and had my family support. And the opportunities were out there. So I think the opportunities are dwindling because of bad policies from Trenton. And I think people are losing hope, so much so that many of them are leaving the state. So as a general principle, I want to make sure that the American dream lives and is revived in New Jersey, so that people want to stay and have the ability to stay here as I had that opportunity.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. John Azzariti. And for our viewers that are watching that want to check out your Facebook or your Twitter, this is your handle. It's the same for both, right? John Azzariti NJ. So you can find that on Facebook and at Twitter, at John Azzariti NJ for Twitter. Thank you, Dr. Azzariti, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that today is your day off, so I'm very honored and humbled to have you on during your day off to give me some time. But thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, and I value our friendship greatly, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and most importantly, please invite me for dinner.
No, you'll be here.
All righty. All right, Dr. John Azzariti, candidate for New Jersey State Assembly, District 39. Thank you for joining Real Talk with Ronnie.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening to Real Talk with Ronnie. To watch and learn more about our show, including ways to contact us and how you can be a guest, go to realtalkronnie.com.